I recently stumbled upon a very interesting observation of the nuance between not self and wisdom, and I wanted to bring the conversation to Brenda today and really deep dive into this, because when you learn human design and you learn the centers of the chart, which is one of the first things that you learn when you are learning the human design system, what does it mean when they're defined and when they're undefined in both health and unhealth or not self? It seems so black and white. But then when you actually get into the experimentation, things become a little bit more gray. So my goal in today's episode is to really deep dive into this gray area and talk about the wisdom of each center and how to navigate the not self and when it is actually not self versus when it is wisdom. So I thought it would be fun to start with the throat center. I have an undefined throat, you have a defined throat.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect comparison. I have an undefined ajna, you have a defined ajna. So I think both of those would be good to dive into.
Yeah, I'm excited about this because you brought this to me in a way that I actually have never thought about. I've been very kind of black and white about it. So I'm excited to talk about this, and I have no idea what is going to pop out.
Which is very much your well, which is interesting. That's actually a very interesting nuance to kick us off.
Yeah.
According to this black and white thing, I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth actually is more of the experience of the undefined throat.
Yeah.
But with the 4323, it very much doesn't know what is coming out of its mouth.
Yeah, it's surprising. But there is a timing component to it, right? Which I've learned, because 23 is my conscious earth. And so I'm very much, and it's a 3-line as well, but learning the timing piece of that. That has been the biggest obstacle, is this timing piece. So yes, let's keep going with this.
So let's lay the foundation a little bit. So yeah. The throat center, for those of you that aren't as familiar with all of the specifics and whatnot, the throat is the center for communication as well as manifestation. So it can be either talking about something or actually bringing something into reality. So with this, like they say, you have a consistent way of communicating or bringing something into reality if you have it defined, specifically when the bringing it into reality is specific when it's connected to a motor, but I digress. When it's inconsistent, like I have, it has an inconsistent way of communicating.
Yeah.
And so learning to be okay with that inconsistency is part of the wisdom that comes with the undefined throat.
Yeah.
And what I find really fascinating about this, that really like kickstarted this discussion for me, is having a very long transit currently that is defining 4323.
Yeah.
So as of right now, 23 is in the planet of Uranus, and it's going to be around it's going to be in that activation or that gate pretty much throughout the entire year and into part of next year.
Yeah.
And so I have a defined ajna and a defined throat during this time. So the question becomes, is the wisdom to not act on it and not speak and still not have certainty? Or is it to lean into it and see what that energy is like so that when the transit disappears, I have wisdom?
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. I feel like the wisdom is going to be to lean into it, right? Because you have the definition right now with this transit. It's there. And so it's learning the timing, learning the consistency of actually, so it's first learning the consistency of having a consistent voice, of having a consistent way of speaking, doing manifesting, right? And communicating. But then also at the same time, learning the timing piece of it, because all of this is kind of new to you. Is that how you experience it?
Well, so that's the thing that's interesting is I have been in this human design experiment, and this will happen to all of our people that are listening too. I have been in this human experiment actively aware for only 3.5 years. Or, I've been saying 3.5 years for a while. So we're coming up on 4. It's very close to 4 right now. And so I have experienced this and long transits either in this part of my chart or other parts of my chart throughout my entire life.
Right.
Because as a undefined throat, I have 4 possible activations, right? So when it goes from 23 in Uranus, whatever, we'll make all the jokes. When it moves out of 23, it moves into 8. So then I'll have 1-8. defined.
Yeah, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it goes back to 23 because planets have regressions, right?
Yep.
Or retrogrades.
Retrogrades, yeah.
So I think it's interesting because technically the concept of your chart is you learn it so that you don't have to pay attention to the transits because this is your true self.
True, right.
And so when you're leaning into the transits and using them, it seems like, yeah, you kind of have to lean into them to gain the wisdom. And, you know, it's no choice. Yeah. Right now I have 4323 and there's no choice about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hear the way I communicate and how it's different.
Yeah.
And I've recognized there's no words, hold on, that 4323s do that you don't really understand.
Know what you don't know or
until
what you know.
Exactly. It's like, hold on. And it's like the gears are turning. It's like starting to process, and then it's like communication.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I mean, I just think it's an interesting thing that you will have in all these other areas as well. And I've been mentioning, I've alluded to it many times, that I've been actively deconditioning my throat center. And it's fascinating that I've been doing that in a period where my throat has been defined.
That's really interesting because I'd be curious what your experience is of that when you don't actually have the transit, when the transit is gone, if that feels different, if it feels deconditioned, if it feels like when you don't have that 4323, you don't have those words that are just right there, does that actually feel different post-transit?
Well, that's the thing that's interesting about it. So I have been running a YouTube channel for 5.5 years.
Yeah.
Right? And come pretty much when this transit came in.
Yeah.
In a way. I stopped in mid-October and I looked at the dates of when this began. Yeah, I don't think it was October. I think it was a little bit maybe before October, but I stopped. And it was actually during the 1156 activation that was occurring, which is really about sharing stories, right? And I was recognizing, okay, I just kind of want to document, right?
Yeah.
I just want to document life.
Yeah.
And it activated 33, which is my unconscious sun. No, which was stop.
Yeah.
Retreat.
Yeah.
Turn a weak position into a strength.
Yeah.
Right? And like, it like created a pause button on the throat, all of those activations. So it is almost interesting how maybe the wisdom that is coming through in it, and I'm processing out loud through this 4323 as we talk.
Yeah, welcome to my world.
Yeah. Is that I am maybe learning, maybe the open throat has more of an ability to stay consistent when, on social media.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have that natural, it's not ready to talk yet.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, I actually feel like oftentimes that stops me. I'm not sure if it's my spleen saying no or my root. It's not the time, right? Or if it's that 43, it's just not, the message isn't there yet. The words aren't there yet. So the message isn't going to come through clearly. There's many times where I sit down and I try to film something or I try to, and I'm like, oh, wow, I don't know this. That's why it's feels almost like so much soundboarding, the 4323, because you just don't know what you know or don't know until it starts to come through. And as you're speaking it, that's why it's the, also the freak to genius, because sometimes you're like, oh, wow, this really isn't the right timing. I have no idea what I'm talking about. And now I'm just confusing everyone around me, right? And myself. So it's interesting. It's really, really interesting because I have a hard time being consistent with it. And that feels like a big stopping point because the message isn't ready yet. Yeah. Yeah. And when it is, and it flows. Yeah. In a very effortless way. Yep. And from an undefined throat perspective, it also comes out rambly, right? Yeah. The judgment to a degree of that from an undefined individual. Yeah. So when you're hearing defined throats speak, is the wisdom of the undefined throat how to communicate more effectively, because the things that are communicating in their own specific way, and they can't ever break that way. Yeah. But what's the blending of them that makes it the most and clearest form of communication? Yeah, no, I think that absolutely is the wisdom. I have no experience with undefined throat, right? I have definition, but I think that is the wisdom because when there's nothing to say, so as I tell people, when there's nothing to say, you don't have definition, there's nothing to say, there's nothing to say. But when there is something to say, it comes through and it's very poignant and it's beautiful and people actually listen. So I think
with the defined or undefined?
With the undefined.
With the undefined.
If there's something to say, because it's not rambly. It's, oh, there's energy to speak now. There is something to say here and I'm going to say this. That's been my experience with people who are undefined, that are deconditioned, that are using it the way that they're meant to use it. There can be consistency. It may not always sound the same. It may not always be the same message, but it's very clear and it feels very grounded. It's not rambly. It's very grounded, whatever is coming through. Yeah. So I think that is the wisdom, is knowing when to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is very challenging to maintain in a long transit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, maybe just consistently having to ask the question, am I trying to get attention? Am I trying to get attention? Is how you navigate through that. I mean, that is how you do it.
Yeah.
But it's been a really fascinating exploration that has kicked off an entirely different perspective, which is how human design works.
Of course.
It's like you go through, you think you understand something, and then there's like this new layer that gets added to it, or a new transit.
Yeah.
Right? That then deepens, which is why it takes 7 years to decondition through all of these, because you have to experience multiple transitions throughout it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So the next place that I thought it would be kind of fun to talk about, I mean, we could go to the ajna, but let's jump down to the solar plexus.
Yeah.
Because you and I have the 3955 electromagnetic, which means that in transit, you experience when 39 comes in.
Yeah.
I experience when 55 comes in.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, we have other ones. I have 59, you have 6. I have 19, you have 49. Okay, so we can talk about it from many different angles.
Yeah.
Right? So also noting that I have a completely open solar plexus.
Yeah.
Nothing activated within the center. Yet, I have 5 things pointing to it.
Yes.
So there's also constant consistency in the transits. Like, there's a lot. I realized that was one of the early things, was like, I'm actually on the emotional wave quite a bit.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? And so for you, I think it'll be interesting to talk about it. So let's dive in. What is your, and we obviously, this last episode, we just talked about the nervous system, which is the wisdom of the solar plexus. But explain the foundational basics of the solar plexus for those that don't know, kind of like healthy, defined, undefined.
Yeah. So when the undefined or in your case, the open solar plexus can be fear of confrontation, right? When it's unhealthy, there's a fear of confrontation. It's not wanting to deal with the negativity that's around. It's putting on the smile and saying everything is fine. Lying first, it's Ross says, lying first to yourself and then to everyone around you. And the healthy solar plexus has an emotional wave. So there's the high and the low. There is no clarity in the now. There's no certainty in the now for someone who has a defined emotional wave. They have to ride the highs and the lows before they can make their decisions. About 70% of the time, I think more than that for a lot of emotionally defined people, that's the authority. So,
well, everyone that's emotionally defined, will have that authority.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got your healthy waves and people that can ride them and don't act in the now based on their emotional state. And then you have the open or undefined, which is, I have no idea what a true wave feels like. I know what it's like to amplify a wave. I grew up with 2 emotionally defined generator parents without throat centers. And that amplification is real. Very real.
So it's interesting to me that you say, I don't know what a real wave feels like.
Yeah.
Because you likely have had long transits activating the center at times. What have you recognized, if anything at all, when either 59, 19, or 39 comes in the transits?
Yeah, so, I don't know that I really notice a whole lot. To be honest, I don't pay attention to the transits a whole ton, but I do notice 55 is the one that I notice the most. When 55 comes through, when there's definition there, I got into nutrition because I struggle with eating and digestion and the whole deal. And I've noticed that my 55 and the melancholy of it, the emptiness, will kick in a lot of times. And all of a sudden, I will have binges of food or where I just can't fill up, and there is this kind of emptiness feeling. I think it's the biggest thing that I've noticed about when that transit comes through.
That transit is a heavy one when it comes through. I have a lot of empathy for people with 3955, my sister being one of them, one of my best friends being another one. It's definitely, when it comes in for me, that I think the emptiness is just a perfect way of describing it, or a numbness.
Yeah.
And then there's the really sweet side of it. And actually it's really nice to experience the sweet side of it too, where it's almost like happy tears.
Yeah, it's joyful.
Yeah.
It's very joyful. It's very emotional.
Very emotional. It's the channel of emoting.
Yes, but it's like life can be so beautiful. Life can be so beautiful.
So you say you don't pay attention to the transits. That's fine. No worries. 19 has been in the transits for like 6 days now in the sun. So that means that you have had 1949 all week.
Yes.
So what has your experience been of navigating emotions this week from a tribal perspective?
Yeah, that's actually very interesting too, because 49 is my design Earth.
Right. In line 6. So
yes.
there is that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I feel like actually I've been very successful at navigating emotions this past week. It's because it's been tough, right? My husband's dealing with knee issues. There's a lot going on. It's very emotional for him. And he's a charisma, and so it's just all the emotions are just there, and he's undefined. But together, he's got 59, so together we form that 59-6, which is also very like a violent like upheaval of emotion when we have it together. But there's been an ability to handle it a lot better.
Because you actually have sensitivity towards his needs.
Yeah.
So on the flip side, let's say, okay, and we probably won't make it through all 9 centers, but I think this is a fun way to just kind of explore a little bit of the nuances here.
Yeah.
So 19 is my unconscious Earth.
Yes.
Right? So 49 is your unconscious Earth. I have it in line 1. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So lower frequency, I mean, not lower frequency, but like the most immature energy really of it. You have the most mature of the 49, which is almost on to the next one at that point.
Yeah.
But 19, I am very sensitive to other people's needs.
Yes.
Until 49 comes in and it's like, F you serve me. Like this, no, like we need to adjust things. We need to change things. It's revolution.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So for you, 19 coming in is a little bit more softer energy, more caring to other people's needs potentially.
It is. It's funny because with my husband's knee issues, I've been having to drive him around. And normally that is a like, oh my God, you're interrupting my day. And I just don't have the energy to do this and this and this. But it's been much easier. I've been able to say to myself, you know, Brenda, he's your husband of 21 years and he needs your help. Drive him around. It's okay. And truly, I'm like, of course that's okay. Of course that's okay. I can do this.
It's because you have energy for self-sacrifice.
Yes.
Because of the tribal transit.
Yes.
Yeah. When you don't typically have tribal.
No, I don't like tribal. I have some tribal, but
we both have a lot of tribal circuitry, like gates, but no consistent.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, fascinating. I think that that is really an interesting thing. So it's like, once again, coming back to the wisdom versus the not self.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is it not self for you to now be caring? Right? Or is it more gaining the wisdom of what it's like to be the 19?
You know, I think it's both in a way. It's not the not self, because the transit is there, the energy is there. The energy is there. And so it's gaining the wisdom of what that not self, or when I'm not the not self, right? It's also gaining the wisdom of what I don't normally have, right? And being okay with the fact that I'm not the person who is caring and self-sacrificing. I'm not. And I'm okay with that. I'm enjoying feeling that right now and getting to gain what it's like, the wisdom of what it's like for somebody else who has that all the time. And I'm using it to my advantage. It's allowing me to actually, my husband's using it to his advantage, right? It's allowing us to move together. But I think the wisdom in this is I get to use this right now, but this is not who I am. And that's okay.
Yep.
That's okay.
Not building your entire life or business around this quality of you that is consistently changing.
Yes. And I'm not missing that in myself.
Right.
I'm not, it's not a piece of me that should be there that isn't. When I get to connect with it, fantastic. I can use it in different ways. But when it's not there, it's not there.
I have been very, very like specifically focused, in the last episode we talked about loneliness.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that that's coming up in, right now I have the activation in the 37.
Yeah.
Which is the channel of community.
Yes.
Right? And I've been very aware of this. It's like, it's really interesting in that desire for community. And yes, I am a 4 line.
Yeah.
And there is a difference because it's who can I touch?
Right.
I want to have people close to me.
Yes.
Not just, I can be alone working with just the 40. Right?
Yes.
And be okay doing an online business.
Yeah,
right. And so it's like that transit's impact. They say that you just don't want to make decisions out of these open centers.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So that was to say, that's my question there then is, how do you use that to your advantage, knowing it's temporary? Knowing that, okay, or maybe not even using it to your advantage, but just, having the awareness of it. Maybe you don't have to use it at all, but not letting it impact your kind of day-to-day. And that's why it is so important to know your chart, to know who you are from that chart, and then learn through these transits because they're temporary. We don't actually, like you experience in the 23, 43 in a longer transit, you're going to get a little bit more, but you're still not going to know what it's like from birth to always have that. The same way I'll never know what it's like to not have it.
Right. Yeah. No, 100%.
Yeah.
Which is what I think the value, once again, of these open centers is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that you can't fully know what it's like because you never don't have it.
Yep.
But when you have the lack of definition and then you get defined, you gain the wisdom and the awareness of what it is like for those individuals that do have that all the time. So then when you come across a 3955 in your office, you have empathy in a different way.
One of my best friends has the 3955. And when I first met her, it was like, oh, this is a lot. I don't know because it's, when she's not in the mood, she's not in the mood. And when it's low, damn, that's low. I mean, it's, that wave.
Especially if it doesn't have a way of communicating it.
Yes. Yes, she does. But it's such, for me, it's something I feel so heavily. I feel it when someone is emoting from that line. I mean, I guess everybody does, but I'm very aware of it.
I don't think everyone does. I think people with an open...
Yeah, you're right.
An open solar plexus do.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I do think that the 3955 in general is more empathetic. The stream of individuality from 3955 to 1222 is more empathetic as a defined solar plexus.
100%.
Because it's like they take it on. It's like they it's really interesting.
Well, they have a natural way of using the wave. They understand the lows of the waves, the highs. They utilize that energy, and they know that, for me to amplify, when she's in the low of her wave, it's, it's low, and she's just got kind of a way of using it. For me, I'm like, oh my God, this is so heavy. I want out of this. Until I realize, okay, stop amplifying and just let her be in the low. You can just kind of detach and don't have to join her there.
And so, I guess, and then we'll move on to another center. Yeah. Let's say building your entire business around emotional intelligence, is that wisdom or not self when undefined? Solar plexus.
Yeah.
I don't have the answer.
I think it depends on how you build your business around it, right? Is it that you're going to dive in and feel that? Or do you have the wisdom of that's yours. This is mine. I don't have to have a fear of confrontation, right? I think if you're deconditioned, it's safe, and there's a lot of wisdom in building something because you can amplify, you can go there, you can see and feel, but you can also kind of cut it off. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah.
I would love to know y'all's perspective of this too. So any of these conversations that we're having, if you have any of these activations or defining your chart, undefining your chart, the transits and your experience of it, go ahead and drop that in the comments because truly we would love to hear your perspective. So I want to either hit, for me personally, I'm feeling more called to either the ego or the G center.
I mean, either one is fine for me. I love talking about the ego.
Let's do the ego. I'm down with the ego. So I have someone in my coaching program for video production and getting your message out there and everything, 26 and her son, okay?
Yeah.
She's a 5-1, so it's 26 line 5. Yeah. And it
Defined,
undefined ego,
Okay.
right?
Uh-huh.
So what does wisdom look like when 26 is your sun sign
Yeah.
in an undefined center?
Yeah.
Are you here to be wise to sales and marketing and get really good at positioning something, but it's a learned skill that you have to have? Or is that not so?
Yeah.
Right? Like these are the gray areas.
It's, the skills and the marketing, it's interesting because it's also how often do you have consistent access, right? It's something that's a natural piece of you, but if you don't have consistent access to it, maybe it's something you don't lean heavily into. So,
Well, I mean, you don't know if you have consistent
well, because if it's undefined.
it's undefined.
Yeah.
Right. And so also taking a quick step back, let's describe the ego real quick.
Yeah.
So the ego, when defined, is healthy self-esteem.
Yep.
Now, we refer to it as the ego often, but it actually, in the book, it's the heart center.
Yeah.
And the ego is the keynote.
Yeah.
And willpower is the keynote. But people often use these things interchangeably. The willpower center, or, the center for willpower, or the ego center, right? Or the heart.
Yeah.
But it's really helpful to have all those keynotes to really understand it.
Yeah.
When it's defined, healthy sense of self-esteem, as well as willpower, to be the consistent willpower to follow through on things.
Oh, yeah.
Undefined, not consistent level of self-esteem. It really is kind of like direct opposites, as well as a tendency to prove yourself because you don't have that consistent self-esteem, and so you have to overcome it to work for that almost external inflation of your ego to feel that sense, as well as not having willpower to be able to follow through on things that you say. So being able to it's healthy to not actually promise things, work without making promises, which is a very interesting thing that we've both been exploring.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you have a mom and a husband with defined ego.
Yeah. Yeah. It's being around someone with a defined ego is really fantastic sometimes, right? It can be really wonderful to get a boost of self-confidence. I can do this. I can do this. Yeah, I can do this. This is great, right? I learned how to be a strong woman from my mother because she was no, this will be done. This is the way it is. Oh, I can do that too. And then stepping away, where did that go? Maybe I can't do this. I don't know. Maybe I don't need to do this, right? Maybe I don't need to be this way. Or getting stuck in a fight, an amplification of no, normally I would back off and okay, you're right, I don't care. But with my husband, I'm no, I'm right. No, I'm right. So it's interesting to feel that. Yeah, to be around that.
And it's both tribal energies.
Yeah.
Because you have 45, so if 21 is activated, that'll be your most consistent,
and he has
44.
He has 21. So, and you will define. So that's a fun.
Well, yeah. So not only are you amplifying his, but you're actually truly experiencing that activation yourself.
Yeah.
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 Money.
Yeah. Which was a terrible, terrible activation until I deconditioned my ego center and was able to talk about money and overcome shame and pride and all the good enough. And once I could decondition that and be able to talk openly about money and my resources, what I have, what I don't have, and speak openly with him, who's the budgeter and the spreadsheets and, you know, the penny pincher piece of it. Shouldn't say that, he's not, but can be, you know. And so that became a beautiful connection when I could decondition and be able to say, oh, okay, it's not shameful that I don't have these resources. It's not shameful that, you know, whatever the condition is.
That makes sense. One, that's the wisdom of the open undefined identity center from the lens of having 45 pointing to it.
But being around someone who has it defined.
And someone that has it defined with the 21.
I want to amplify and say, no, I have this. I will do this. And it's really hard to step back and, oh, there's nothing to prove. I don't have this. I'm not going to do this. Yeah.
And I think something that clicked for me in that a quick reflection to everyone and to you as well, is like money and how closely it is tied to self-value.
Oh my God.
I've never put that together, but because I don't have any activations in the 45-21, that is the only channel that I'm not compromised to anyone else with an ego.
Yeah.
So anytime I come around an ego, I'm usually compromised to that person, and I don't like it. Yeah. Like, I really don't like it. Like it, and my entire family completely activates the ego with no definition in the ego, except for my dad, who does have definition, but when I'm with like my mom and the 4 kids, it's not activated, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it is.
But how interesting, money, how closely it is tied.
I mean, it is how we value ourselves in our society. The more you have, the more you're worth. I mean, we literally call it your net worth, your self-worth, right? I mean, it's so tied. And when we don't have enough, I mean, we can talk about the sacral center too, right? If you're not working enough, you're not doing enough. Then you're not making enough. And then, so you've got open sacral, open ego.
You're never enough.
No.
Yeah.
You're worthless and penniless. It's a tough gig. It's a tough gig.
I want to hit upon the 26 because this is something that I've recently been diving into, and then we'll start to kind of move towards wrapping it. I watched this show, which was Grant Cardone, who, if you've probably seen like ads of him, he's a realtor guy, and he's always like one of those people that's like, look at this jet that I have, blah, 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 like whatever. And so I watched Undercover Billionaire with him, because which is really when a billionaire goes undercover to build $1 million business in 90 days. And of course, as always, I have to look up the chart as I watch this, right? So you can always go to AstroChart, type in someone's name, and get their birth info, and it'll tell you like the accuracy of it or not, and his was excellent. Yeah. And so I had his chart knowing what he is and everything, and he was a defined 26-44 ego. Sales and marketing, right? So is Amy Porterfield, someone that I've learned from a lot. Same with Sunny Lenarduzzi, also someone that I've learned from a lot in terms of YouTube. And it's really interesting as a 44. I also have that electromagnetic with my sister. So since I was 18 months old, I've had that, as well as with my husband and you and I.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's really, it was interesting to observe, and it's a compromise whenever you come across someone that has the full sales and marketing channel.
Yes.
It feels sleazy, right?
It can.
There's an element of it that you're like, something's wrong here. And I was able to click into, no, actually, he has a healthy self-esteem.
Yeah.
In that he knows he can do this.
Yeah.
And I think and like he kept saying like, I had to prove that I could do this, that I could rebuild my business, because if I couldn't do this, then what is all the value that I have outside of this? And it was like he put his identity on the line in a way, and his ego on the line, and he had to prove it.
Absolutely.
And it was like a really powerful way of like learning about the 26-44 without actually learning anything about human design, which is the power.
True, absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of my really good friends, we were business colleagues for a little while, and she's a manifester with the 44-26 and the 21-45. And she's splenic, but ego. like splenic ego for sure. And it was very interesting to, at first, it's a little, I didn't get sleazy from her, but a little off-putting where it's like, wow, this person like thinks a lot of themselves. And, you know, as I started kind of looking at the design and getting to know her, I'm like, wow, I wish I had that much confidence and self-esteem. And it's not a false confidence. It's not a false sense of, it's, no, I have to have this to make it through life. If I don't have self-esteem, if I don't have this feeling of I can do this and I will do this, then life will fall apart. Like it's survival, and it's just a natural energy that's so interesting to experience. And to be in business with someone with those lines, compromise.
Yes.
Definitely. But it was easy to compromise when my ego's deconditioned and I can talk about money and I can talk about things freely and also say, I recognize that you have this energy. I'll give you my input, but I realize that we're going to have to flow with your energy because you're not looking for my input. I must back off and only put in when it's necessary. So, you know, it's interesting to compromise, but again, when you're deconditioned, it's very easy. It was very easy to just back off and be like, all right, and also, I guess maybe it's manifestor energy too, because you just, I don't have the 59, so I can't penetrate, like, so I'll just back off. You do your thing and tell me when I need to do something.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, I do think that coming back to the person, let's say,
Yeah.
with 26 and her son, undefined,
Yeah.
ego, right? Or heart, or willpower,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So if that was your design, then, you know, you're not here to maybe prove yourself or anything in that regard. It's more of ability to feel it sometimes through the transits, experience the benefit of that, experience how it shifts. Because when you don't have the full thing, I like to describe, I've started this analogy that I think is really helpful with human design, is like you were listening to the radio. If you're a one-off, it's like staticky. It sometimes comes in, it sometimes comes out. That's like having a gate.
Yeah.
You have an understanding of it to a degree, but you don't have the full perspective until a transit clicks in, boom, and then it's like now you think that that's who you are, and then you run your business, your life around it and everything, right? But I think it's more of like, okay, you're not here to be a salesman if your son is 26 necessarily, but you're here to learn healthy self-esteem and observe it in others. And I think a big part of the ego is being okay with triggering people with the self-esteem that you have.
100%. Yeah.
Because 70% of the population doesn't have a defined ego.
Exactly.
And so you have to be willing to stand firm in that. And so I think a lot of people talk about conditioning within the defined centers. A lot of people that have a defined center, ego or heart or whatever, they don't resonate with having self-esteem.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
It's like they've been like kicked down so much that it actually has impacted them.
100%. It's one of the biggest things that I see, like in my practice too, is the people with undefined. We have to spend so much time, especially people in the corporate world. We have to spend so much time deconditioning that ego and getting to the point where you release all judgments around it. And it's just like, well, I have nothing to prove. I'm going to do the work, but if you don't like it. And I think a lot of that 26 also is I'm going to be good at the sales marketing work, but I also don't want to work. Yes. And there's like manipulation kind of that goes with it. And so I think that for someone who has that in their sun sign without having the ego defined, recognizing that that is going to be a large part of their personality, but there's nothing to prove with it most of the time, unless there's a transit and then you've got that definition, then you can maybe prove or work with it. But I think a lot of it is just that recognizing that your personality may come across as that. You may be able to manipulate, you may be able to kind of spin things as you need to and get the message out there, but you have nothing to prove with it. It's just, this is a skill set that you have, and if you can connect it with a 44, fantastic, because then you can trust that you're working with the right people, you're doing the right things. But yeah.
Yeah, and recognizing, last thing, then we'll start to wrap this, and recognizing that Like I at one point thought, great, I want to hire 26 because I have 44 and that'll help us bridge the sales and marketing channel and they'll write the copy for my website and all the things.
Yeah.
And then realizing, well, when they're alone, they still only have the 26. And then it bothers you that they don't know your side of it.
Yes.
And so it's almost better to just hire someone the entire thing. And because you have that undefined, healthy ego that you're living in and you're living in the wisdom of it, you can allow them to do it to the full capacity, knowing that you don't have that wisdom in the same way.
Exactly. Right. I think that's a huge point, is that with the electromagnetics, we think, oh, I'm missing that. But they have their own experiences, their own conditioning and deconditioning to do as you do. And you're just bringing two different stories to the table. And maybe they connect, maybe they don't. Also, your stories don't tend to change. So over time, maybe it's great in the beginning, but that doesn't mean that it's always going to be great.
Well, that's why they say it's love-hate.
Yeah,
the electromagnetics are love-hate. You love it at first. It feels really good. It changes it. They have such a different perspective. You completely. And then it's like, oh my God, stop.
Yeah.
You are so ignorant of what I have and the things that I bring to the table. And I wish you just had it yourself. Yes. Okay, well, this is a great place to wrap. We could continue going on and on clearly about this conversation. So I would love to hear your perspective. Once again, drop those in the comments and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and join us on this journey of exploring the deeper side of human design. And if you want to dive into yet another YouTube video, then go ahead and check this one out on the screen. Thanks for watching.